Terminology and functioning, that's the whole next step in this process of mastering level 2. So that's what we're going to focus on here. Just get terminology out of the way and then also figure out how these things actually function. Now, we learned a lot of terminology in the previous video, but that was just laying down that first foundation. We're going to continue to build on that foundation. So we're going to add another layer, and that's going to come in the form of more trader talk, learn the lingo, and then most importantly of this video is what actually causes level 2s to move. I mean, an auction is very fluid. An auction is always changing. The person on stage is, talking super fast. People out in the audience are always throwing up different numbers. So an auction is not just a snapshot in time. Like that picture we looked at showed. Yes, it shows where all the pieces are, but then how the pieces are interacting and functioning, a picture isn't going to show you that. We're actually going to have to show some movement, and that's what this video is going to be all about. Level 2s definitely move, and with anything, whether it be a car or any sort of mechanical equipment, a very logical question as well. Yeah, I see that it moves, but what causes it to move? And that's going to be the core of this video. Now, I minored in economics in college. And within economics, a very commonplace thing to do is just when you want to teach something or get a point across, you want to just create a small little kind of quote unquote perfect market. By having a small market, it just makes things easier to get across. Now, is it totally realistic? No, not totally realistic, but for what I'm trying to do here, it's going to convey, how things work, and it's going to show just exactly how kind of the pieces all fit together and how they interact with one another. So, don't sit here and say, oh, this example is with 6 people. What is this? Just, take it for what it is. Just trying to use it for an example. But before we get into the actual little market here, I want to first talk about the add 2-0 rule. So let's talk about that. So we know what the tape is now, but the tape, I still haven't quite gotten everything there. When you look at the tape, sometimes you need to add 2 zeros to the numbers that are being shown to you. Some of you may already know this, but like I said, remember the assumption that I'm going under. What do I mean by that? Well, in this example over here, you can see 100 shares. All right, that makes sense. 3,100. All right, 600. In these cases, especially of a stock that's changing hands at $65.30 in this case, it wouldn't really make much sense to add 2 zeros. I mean, 40,000 stocks, that's a lot of money, and all these 10,000. If these were all 10,000s, that'd be a lot of big money changing hands. So on these, you don't need to add 2 zeros, excuse me. However, you look at another provider. So this is, keep in mind, this is one provider of level 2. That's why I want to, get this out. This platform, this broker, whoever it is, their software is set up where you don't have to add any zeros. However, we look on this, and I have no idea who these are. But again, I'm sure people are buying more than 5 shares, 1 share. So like here is, a 100 share order. Down here, another 100 share order, but in this case, there are no zeros. So it's not like this is just telling us that 1 share was bought, 1 share was bought, 1 share was bought. Add 2 zeros to it. There is really 100 shares being bought here. My personal broker that I use, I have to use the add 2 zero rule because they don't show me the actual size. They just show, I see lots of 5s and 1s and all that stuff. So that's my broker, and you'll see some of that later on. But just keep that in mind when it comes to the tape. You want to make sure that you're getting some sort of perspective. Now, is this going to make or break you? Absolutely not. But just one of those kind of FYIs, just to kind of keep you informed that, one of those little things that I think probably a lot of people don't really think about, but, it can kind of trip you up at first. I remember, the first time I looked at it, I was like, it just kind of threw me off until I figured out, oh, okay, they're not actually showing the total order size. Now, we just talked about the tape. Let's throw another term at you. So let's talk about the box. The box is where the representatives hang out. You can picture it as like a coffee shop or a bar or whatever. Just that's where they hang out at. That's if you want to see where the market or the market makers, yes, or the representatives are. You want to go to the box. So over on our level 2s, this whole area here is, hey, look, it's a box, and that's what you call it, the box. So this is where all the market makers are hanging out, and at the same time, you may need to add this rule to this too. What do I mean? Well, if you look over here, you can see 10, 3, 1, 1. And this is actually all part of the same level too. So it's a little bit goofy. Over here on the tape, they're showing you don't have to add 2 zeros, but over here you do have to add 2 zeros. So I didn't notice that at first when I found this, but just right now I'm noticing it. So that's not sure if I've ever seen that before, because again, my level 2s, you have to add 2 zeros even over here on in the box, but here box you do have to. The tape, you do not have to. So a little bit strange there. Not that it really matters, but I guess I'm just kind of talking out loud right now. Anyways, but that's what you get for hanging out with me. Sometimes I talk out loud to myself. But so keep that in mind. Obviously, I guess in some cases you don't need to add 2 zeros at all, but in this case, you do over here, but don't in the box. So just one of those things. Always keep in mind the add 2 zero rule, just to keep the proper frame of reference. So let's talk about our little perfect marketplace right now. We're gonna have 6 different people, and then they're gonna all be representative by different market makers. There's one ECN. ARCA is an ECN, but for simplicity's sake and just for what I'm trying to get across, we're just going to call them a market maker, because in the world of pennies, everybody's a market maker. So it is what it is, and you'll see as we go through that whether I call them a representative or a market maker or an ECN, doesn't matter, as long as you understand the concept that market makers work for us. We tell them what to do, and then they go and do it. We're paying them a commission, so they go and do what we want them to do. As long as you understand that concept, that they're going to the auction for us, they're representing us, but they don't have a mind of their own. We're telling them what to do. Then that's the important part that I want to convey across. So again, don't worry about that. From here on out, just going to be calling everybody market maker. So here are our 6 people, and then you can see underneath them the market maker that they are paying to represent them. So we have our professional trader over here. They are going to use ARCA. We have Grandma. They are going to use Knight. Billy Bob is going to use VFin. Mutual Fund, HDSN. This guy that lives in a van down by the river, he is going to use, so the river van trader is what I'm calling him. He's using ETRD. And then we have a nice young couple there. They're probably thinking about, retirement. They're being responsible with their money. That is good. They are going to use MICA right there. Now, I'm sure I mentioned it again in the course, but one of these things that I definitely want to repeat over and over again, depending on when you watch this, if you're watching this a week from now or watching it 15 years from now, you may have never seen any of these market makers. They're always changing. The names change all the time. Like any business, they go out of business sometimes, but there's always going to be new ones that pop up. I will say that Knight has been around for a long time, so they are established. This one is E-Trade, the broker, and they've been around a while, but for whatever reason, they're always changing their ticker, not a ticker symbol, their representative symbol. See how tricky that is? I mean, they look like ticker symbols, but they're not. So when you're looking on, blogs, or I'm sure you've maybe got tricked up on it, because I know I have. You may have seen these before and be like, oh, so that's what that is. Yeah, I used to think like Knight was a company, VFin was a company, because I'd read message boards and blogs and all that stuff, and you keep seeing this stuff coming. I'm like, what are they talking about? Who are these companies? But no, they're just a representative. So keep that in mind, though. They are always changing because they are a business. They're trying to make money. But if they don't do a good job representing people, doing what people tell them, or if they're stupid, then they're going to go out of business, and somebody else will pop up, but they're going to have a different four letters. So these are always changing. I try to pick some that have been around a while, but no promises. When you watch this, they may be completely different. So just keep that in mind. But anyways, back on point here. This is our marketplace. Here are our 6 different participants. Scenario number 1 here. So the trader talk that we're going to talk about within this scenario is we're going to inside bid and ask, the spread, and then the market depth. If you don't know what any of those terms mean, then perfect. That's what this scenario is designed for. So let's first just get a grasp of what's going on within our perfect little marketplace. So we have the young couple over here using MICA. They want to buy 100,000 shares of a stock for 5 cents. That's what they're determining. They're looking at their screen. I think we can put this in our 401k, and it's going to do a great job for us. So they want to buy 100,000 at 5 cents. Our mutual fund guy down here, he wants to buy 25,000 shares of that same company at 0.035, and he wants 25,000 shares. All right. Over here we have our professional trader. He's bought previously before, okay, and he wants to sell 35,000 at a price of 6 cents. Then we have Billy Bob here at VFin. He wants to sell 15,000 shares, and he wants to sell those at a price of 6 cents. And then we have sweet little Grandma down here. She wants to sell 25,000 shares, and she wants to sell those for a price of 7.5 cents. If maybe you're thinking, wait, you're going too fast, remember the pause button is your friend. Just click pause, look at the slide. Everything's explained here. This is step 1 in our scenario. These are, everything that we want to see. Now maybe you're thinking, and hopefully you're thinking, wow, that slide, there's all sorts of stuff going on. This person wanted to buy this at that price. Those people wanted to sell at that price, but this person wanted to sell too, but they were willing to sell for a different price. There's too much stuff in my mind. There's what's going on? Look at this. Here it is. All here organized for us, courtesy of level 2s. So everything that I just explained, I was trying to confuse you a little bit by just, rambling it off, but everything's made sense of just like that. Level 2 right here is showing us the total market. There's our, so remember a young couple wanted to buy, well actually let me ask you a question here. Should you be using the add 2 0 rule or no for the box? Remember this is the box right here. If you said yes, then good job, you should be adding 2s. Remember these are penny stocks, so this person wants to buy a big chunk. This person wants to buy some more. So it's one of those things where I kind of did that off the cuff. Maybe it's not as obvious as I thought it would that you should use the add 2 0 rule. So shame on me. But hey, that's what you get when we're just hanging out and all this stuff is unscripted. So my apologies if you didn't think, if you weren't sure, then that's the right answer because this isn't totally obvious. But point being, this isn't a scenario where you should add 2. Actually, the clue was in the previous video or in the previous slide. I said the young couple wanted to buy 100,000. So obviously that is not 100,000, but if you added 2 zeros to it, it would be 100,000. The mutual fund right here wanted to buy 25, so you can add 2 zeros. But regardless, it wasn't that obvious. I mean, I didn't even know the answer, and I'm the one asking the question. So that is where things stand. But remember, like I said, all kind of confusing. Who wants to buy what, at what price, what are they willing to pay, what are they willing to sell, who's who. Well, here it's all organized for us. Now, we don't know who's who in terms of, who actually is, but we can see all the representatives here. So let's get some terminology now under our belt. So the inside bid, whenever you hear somebody say inside bid or best bid, top bid, most aggressive bid, any sort of derivative implying that it's the best bid, that is what the inside bid is. So in this case, the inside bid would be Micah for 1,000 shares at 0.05. Now, did you catch what I said? I'm saying 1,000 shares, but remember, we actually mean 100,000 shares because we got to add 0. But as far as level 2 is concerned, in Trader Talk, someone could say, yeah, Mike is on the inside bid for 1,000 shares at 5, meaning 5 cents going for 1,000 shares. But because the two traders would hopefully be using the same platform, add 2 0 rule. But that's what inside bid is. So inside ask is going to actually be a little bit different. The inside ask is ARCA and VFIN for 500 shares. Now you're thinking, well, where did 500 shares come from? I just see 350 and 150. Well, if we add those up, that's going to give us 500 shares. Because they're both at 6 cents, add those up, and that's what the inside ask is. The inside ask is a total of 500 shares, ARCA and VFIN. So that's just the quick way of saying it. If someone were to say, the inside ask, inside bid, they're just talking about the best possible price to sell and then the best possible price to buy. Now the spread, maybe you've seen this before, people saying, oh, wow, that's a good looking spread, or, that's a really, the spread on that thing is ugly. The spread is just a very basic mathematical equation. It is the inside ask minus the inside bid. So in our case, 6 minus 5 is 0.01. Hopefully you're following me there. Hopefully we can all subtract, but that's all the spread is what is the difference between the inside ask and the inside bid. The more and more I call this the inside bid and inside ask, I think when I talk with people, it must be the best bid and best ask or top, because I don't know, it doesn't feel very comfortable for me to say inside bid, but maybe I say best bid, best ask, I don't know, but that's nonetheless what people are talking about when they're implying the best possible. It's just inside bid, inside ask. And then market depth, if you're somebody that's out on the blogs or message boards or social media, maybe you've seen stuff written like this before and you're thinking, what are they talking about? Well, this is the market depth. That's what it's called. And then all they're doing is summing up what's going on with the best inside ask and inside bid. Sometimes people will add more levels and layers to it, but in our case, ask yourself, how many people want to buy at 5 cents? Thinking back to our scenario, the young couple does, and they want to buy at 5. So there they are right there. One representative wants to buy at 5 cents. However, we have 2 representatives, 2 people, therefore 2 representatives that want to sell at 6. So How many? 2? Well, there you go right there. So the market depth is saying it's 1 by 2 or 5 by 6 cents. So all that, again, one of these things when I first got started, I had no idea what people were talking about when they throw that out on message boards and stuff. But that's the market depth. They're just letting us know that right now there's one person that wants to buy at 5 cents, 2 people that want to sell at 6 cents. Now the other thing to note here, as I put this little sticky note down here to remind myself, is everyone here is just partially motivated. What do I mean? Well, nobody is willing to buy from anybody else. These people up here up on stage, they're saying, I will sell for this amount, but I'm not willing to sell for 5 cents. These people out in the audience are saying, I'm going to buy for 5 cents or I'm going to buy for 3.5 cents, but I'm not willing to pay for what you want standing up on stage. So right now, it's just a standstill. Everybody's partially motivated. These people would like the stock, yes, but not to the extent that they're willing to buy it from the people on stage. These people would like to sell the stock, yes. However, they're not motivated to the extent that they want to sell to the people out in the crowd over here. Oh no, not this picture again. Yes, we have another face to add to it. So now that we understand the market, well, what's going on? Let's take a look at the location of where these people are actually at the auction. So remember, ARCA and VFin, their client wants to buy or wants to sell for the most aggressive price. They are the inside ask. Therefore, they're going to be person number 1 up here on stage. They want to be most aggressive in their selling. They're offering the best price for it, so they're going to be at the front of the line. Grandma here is slightly below them, or behind them, whatever you want to say. So you can see this line of people over here. So therefore, she's second in line. I guess if you want to consider this girl right there second in line, or this, regardless, she is not offering the best price to sell. Therefore, within this picture, she's just got to sit back here and wait in line. She can always change that, but for the time being, where our scenario is right now, Grandma has to wait in line because she is not willing to sell for the price that ARCA and VFin are willing to sell. So professional trader Billy Bob, they want to sell at the best price, so therefore they are number 1 in stage. Grandma, she's not quite as motivated as them. So then think about, psychologically again. Let's think about this from a psychological standpoint. Everybody up here is motivated, but everybody up here is also motivated to a different perspective because these people are more motivated than Grandma. How can I say that? Am I some sort of genius? No, just look at the level 2s. They're willing to sell at 6 cents. She's willing to sell at 7.5 cents. So clearly they have more motivation than she does. Maybe they think it's only worth 6 cents and she thinks it's worth 7.5 cents. Who knows? You're never going to know that, but we do know from a psychological standpoint where the motivation lies. Right now there seems to be quite a bit of motivation to sell at 6 cents because that's where people are. However, partial motivation. If they were super motivated, then they just sell it to the people out in the crowd. So on that note, out in the crowd, who is willing to pay more? The young couple. Remember, they're willing to buy at 5 cents. So they're going to be, because they are making the best offer to buy, they're going to be way up here, front of the line in the crowd. They're going to be right up here. The mutual fund, HDSN, they're at 3.5 cents, which is not, they're not the best offer. So they're going to be back here somewhere in the crowd. Best offer to buy is going to be at the front of the line or the front of the crowd, however you want to look at it. For everybody else, they're just going to have to wait their turn. So all these other people behind the young couple up here, front in the crowd, front and center, they're just going to have to wait. Now, he can always change his mind if he wants, but for the time being, again, where our scenario stands right now, young couple way up here at the front of the crowd, HDSN going to be somewhere else out here in the crowd, and then we know what all these other things mean. But now you can see there's starting to be some organization here, and the organization is a byproduct of people's motivations and people's feelings towards what they want to sell and or buy for. So that's where the positioning all comes in. It's all dictated by what the clients tell the representatives. If Knight all of a sudden hops up here and starts selling for Grandma, she's not going to be very happy. But Knight's not going to do that because he's being controlled by Grandma. He's just the representative. Actually, I just had this. These are the puppet masters, and then the representatives are the puppets. So I probably should have used that analogy. That's actually, I kind of like that. But so look at these people up here if you need more analogies as the puppet masters, and then here are their puppets. So puppet, 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 puppet master, puppet master, puppet master, puppet, puppet, puppet master, puppet master. So yes, you and I are puppet masters. Whenever we go and try to sell shares or buy shares, we are the puppet master of whoever our representative is. So I never, actually, I just dawning on me right now, I am a puppet master. That's pretty cool to say about myself. Time to move on to scenario 2 now. In scenario 1, we just kind of set the framework for the market. All the participants, we figured out what they wanted to buy at, what they wanted to sell at, where their motivations were, what they thought things were worth, establish what the spread was, all that good stuff we now have. Now let's talk about scenario 2 and get some more terminology under our belts here. And this is all going to be about taking the offer. If you hear somebody say, yeah, just take the offer. Oh, they took the offer. In message board lingo, kind of penny stock lingo, you'll see a lot of people say hitting the ask or slapping the ask or any sort of variable of that. But usually it seems like the commonplace is hit the ask or slap the ask, or oh, the ask just got slapped, all that good stuff. That's what they're talking about in this scenario here. So nothing has changed except this little tidbit down here. All of a sudden, the young couple say, you know what? We are happy to pay for this stock. We're happy to pay 6 cents for it. So what has happened here? Let's just put on our psychological hats here. From a psychological perspective, the young couple has just they think, you know what? We're going to become more motivated. Let's buy up at 6 cents because there's people offering shares for 6 cents up on stage. So I want to buy 100,000 shares at 6 cents. But I want you to, you may need to pause it, but we have a problem here now. They want to buy 100,000 shares, but we have a very basic math problem. So, pause it real quick if you want to. Look at the scenarios, crunch some numbers here real quick, and see if you can identify the problem. All right, I don't know if you paused it or not, but I paused and gave you time. The problem is, look at how many people are willing to sell at 6 cents. We have Arca up here. Their client wants to sell 35. So 35 plus Billy Bob wants to sell at 6.2 for 15. So I'm not a really good math person, but if that's 10, carry the 1, 3, 4, 5. So they want to buy 100,000 shares, but there's only 50,000 shares there. So now what is going to happen? How is this going to change the market? We finally have some movement. Up until this point, I hope you realize there has been no movement on level 2s at all. But finally, because somebody had a change of psychology and was willing to pay more, we're going to finally get a change. But how is this reflected, especially when there's this mathematical problem? They want to buy 100,000 shares at 6 cents. However, there's not 100,000 shares at 6 cents left. So let's see how this affects the level 2s. Got a little bit ahead of myself, but let's just go over the math again. Micah wants to buy 1,000 shares total. However, the best ask, the inside ask, is only offering a combined 500 shares. And if just one more time, I want to add 2 0 rule. Remember, that's going on. We got to add 2 zeros. So that brings up the obvious question. Well, what happens when the young couple tells Micah to make the purchase? So remember that first they told Micah, Mr. Representative or Mrs. Representative, I only want to buy at 5 cents. Now they're making the phone. Well, hopefully they're entering in an online order. If they're making a phone call, then they're paying way too much. So they hop on their computer, they enter in the online order and say, Micah, we're bossing you around. We're telling you what to do. We're going to be the puppet master here. Go get us shares at 6 cents. I want 100,000 shares. So what's going to happen now? Well, Micah, he wants business. He wants future business. They're trying to run a profitable business as representatives. So Micah goes out there and buys every single share available at 6 cents. However, because of that mathematical problem, there's only 500 shares out there. With that being said, he's just not going to give up. But what he is going to do is he's going to hop to the front of the crowd and sit there and say, hey, I'm willing to now buy 500 shares at 6 cents. With all this having happened, again, maybe you're thinking, oh man, that was all confusing. All this stuff's going on. These people are changing orders and this person doesn't have enough, but these combined kind of have enough, but this person, the market maker wants to do their best. I mean, a lot of stuff going on. And that's kind of what I want to convey is all sorts of dynamics here going on. But again, that's the beauty of level 2s. It's going to organize all this and tell us exactly what happened. So here's what level 2s would look like after it happens. Micah bought everything available at 6 cents. So let's go back real quick and look at the previous level 2s. Remember Arca and VFin right here. Here is everything available at 6 cents. Now Micah is going to come in and buy all these shares. Therefore, VFin and who was the other market maker? I forgot that. VFin and Arca are now gone. They sold the shares that they wanted to, so they're gone. They're off the stage. They are no longer there. Now it's just Grandma up there. Remember how she had to wait in line? Well, now she's at the front of the line because there's no other sellers up on stage besides her. Micah was at the front of the line. However, now they're even further up in the front of the line because they've just separated themselves more, I should say, because like I said, they were already at the front of the line, but now there's more distance because they want to buy 500 more shares. Now, notice how their share size changed. Why did it change? It changed because they got some of the shares that they wanted. Therefore, it's going to drop in share price, or the amount here is going to drop. Did they get everything that they wanted to at 6 cents? No, they didn't. But now they're willing to still sit here and say 6 cents. Remember, they told Micah, I'm willing to pay up to 6 cents now. So Micah did his best, bought everything at 6 cents, but they still have some shares left that they need to buy. So therefore, right here at 6 cents is the remainder of the shares. Knight, like I said, only person left on stage. Mutual fund, they're still out in the back of the crowd. So let's ask some questions here. What is now the inside bid? If you said 6 cents, good job. And I'm going to pause here to give you a second to pause if you want to. What is the inside ask? If you said 0.075, good job. Again, inside ask is just the best available offer to buy, or I think inside bid, is the best available offer to buy. Inside ask is the best available offer to sell. Now ask yourself again, get out your calculator, what is the spread? If you said 1.5 cents, perfect. 0.075 minus 0.06 gives you the spread. What is the market depth? The market depth is, so let's write this out here. There is one person that wants to buy at 6 cents. So I'm just going to write 6. By how many people want to sell? There's one person, so we'll put that in parentheses. And they want to sell for what price? 75. So right there, the bid is 6 by 75, one of each, because there's one person that wants to buy it each. Remember, there's no more 2 up here at the market depth because those previous 2 people, they sold the shares that they wanted to, so they are now gone. And then finally, what did this all look like on the tape? Remember, the tape is showing us the deal that was reached. It's showing us the agreement, and not only that, it's showing us the details of the agreement. So the agreement that was made between the young couple out in the crowd and then VFin and Arca up on stage was this. There were 500 shares bought, agreed to, at a price of 7 cents. Because it happened, because Micah bought it from people up on stage and quote unquote slapped the ask in trader lingo, it's going to show up green because that's the location of where it happened. The people out in the crowd bought from the people up on stage, therefore it shows up as green and tells us that's where the location happened. Crowd people were buying from the people up on stage. For what price? 7 cents. How many shares? 500. And at what time did this agreement take place? Well, we're just going to call it time X, but you can plug in a time right there, and that's going to show us what time this whole agreement was made to, and here's all the details of it. So, tape, very powerful, because again, not only does it show us what time, the size of the agreement, and the price of the agreement, it's showing us where the location took place. And as traders, where the location took place is very important. At this, it took place on the ask because Micah, that young couple, smacked the ask and bought from people up on stage. And then phase 6 here, just to get the final visual representation, as I've been hinting at, Billy Bob and the professional trader is gone. So now Knight, Grandma no longer doesn't have to wait here anymore. She is now in the front of the line. Nothing has changed out here. Micah was already in the front of the line, yes, but like I said, now they've just even separated themselves more. So there's even more distance here. So instead of this maybe being like 5 feet here, now it's like 10 feet because they decided to up their bid even more. So, who knows what, the mutual fund guy's sitting here thinking, but now there's even more space. They're willing to pay even more than what they were before, so they've left him in the dust that much more. And that also brings about the question from a psychological standpoint. I wonder that's how that's making feel the mutual fund guy act. I wonder if, you're going to start to see HDSN start to move around at all. So we'll see in these coming, scenarios. And I can't remember if I had HDSN move around or not. So yeah, you guys are going to be surprised just as much as me because I did that when I put together these slides a couple weeks ago, so I don't remember what happened. So we will see, but that's what I like, just trying to keep things real and keep this as much unscripted as possible, so it seems somewhat realistic, and I can kind of talk through my thinking, as we're hanging out here. So, but again, if you need to pause the picture, but just remember, those other people up on stage, they got what they wanted, therefore they're gone. Micah got partially what they wanted, so they got a partial fill, and therefore they're still up at the front of the line because they still do have the inside bid. They're willing to pay the most, but they remain partially motivated. They became more motivated, but they're still not motivated enough to buy from sweet old grandma up here at 0.075. Now that we've got these basic little principles out, let's grow our market a little bit. So now we're going to have 4 new participants show up. We have Slick Willie, and he is hiring LAFC as his market maker. We have a ballerina. She's going to use Knight also. That should look familiar because that's who grandma's using, but this is where I'm kind of complicating things a little bit. Market makers are going to have multiple people that they represent. So that's how I'm introducing this little tidbit here, is now Knight has 2 people that they represent. We have a stockbroker using SEAB, and we have a friend from up north, a Canadian, and they're going to be using FANC. So let's now see how things start to interact as our market gets a little bit more complicated. Still not super complicated. I mean, we only started with 6 participants. Now we're up to 10. So let's keep on building here. So in scenario 3 here, what sort of things are we going to be talking about from the Trader Talk standpoint? Well, sometimes maybe you'll see people say, oh, they took the bid. So this is what we're going to be talking about as known as taking the bid. Maybe you've seen it as hitting the bid. But really what it is dumping. And dumping isn't always bad, but when the people up on stage are selling to the people out in the crowd, they are hitting the bid. They are bid whacking. That's another, I probably should have put that term. Write that one down if you haven't seen it. If you read the message boards, you will. A bid whack is when somebody from on stage sells it to somebody out in the crowd. So that's what a bid whack is, but that's another kind of one of those lingo things. So hitting the bid, people are dumping shares, people are bid whacking. That's what we're going to talk about here in this scenario. So let's kind of set the pieces here. From a psychological standpoint, our mutual fund down here has become a little bit more motivated. How do we know that they're motivated? Well, money talks. So they're all of a sudden willing to pay up to 4.5 cents. So it's one of those things where, okay, now we're never going to know why they became more motivated, but for whatever reason, from a psychological standpoint, we know they did motivate. And it all boils down to math and knowing how to read level 2s. They went up to 4.5 cents. All right, so HGSN just got more motivated. Why they got more motivated, I don't know, but they did. Now, the other thing to note is we had our Canadian. They all of a sudden want to sell 70,000 shares at 7 cents. And then we have LAFC, Slick Willie over here. He's just observing from the outside. Just like you and I can pull up level 2s right now and just look at them. Doesn't mean we're going to buy or sell anything, but we can look at them. So that's what Slick Willie's doing right now. He's observing from the outside, but he hasn't told his representative to do anything for him quite yet. Again, maybe that was all just, oh, you're talking way too fast, Clay. There's too many things going on in this scenario. Well, let's just look at level 2s. It's all going to explain it for us. So first thing to note, HGSN, instead of this being 0.035, because they have grown more motivated, now HGSN is willing to pay 0.045. Our Canadian, remember, they want to sell 70,000 shares. So all of a sudden that shows up as 700. And now you notice that if think back to the picture, grandma is not first in line anymore. She has to go back to where previous position was because the Canadian all of a sudden showed up and said, you know what? I see grandma's willing to sell for 7.5 cents. I'd be happy with 7 cents. So right there, cuts in line. And now they have the inside ask. They have the best offer. They're willing to sell it for the cheapest. So that's where that comes into play. But again, very transparent here in terms of how level 2s really organize all the hecticness that's going on behind the scenes. The other thing to note is, do you see LAFC here anywhere? Nope. So that tells us that we just don't, that was a terrible question mark. Don't see him anywhere. And that's a limiting factor at level 2. There's never going to tell it, unless people can read brainwaves. Level 2s is never going to be able to tell you who's thinking about maybe buying. These people have reached the point of motivation where they are willing to put their money where their mouth is and put in an order into the market. Slick Willie right now, he's very, very slightly motivated because he's looking at the ticker symbol. So he has some motivation or else he wouldn't be looking at it. Whether his motivation is to buy or sell, or maybe just get some education like, what yours may be or what mine may be sometimes, just to look at level 2s for the sake of, hey, let's see if I can learn something. We don't know what his motivation is, but there is some sort of motivation. If it's financial motivation, then that'll eventually show up in level 2s. If it's not, then we'll never know. But level 2s are never going to tell you how many people are out in the market, how many people are considering it, or anything like that. So yes, in this market there's only 4 people. We have young couple, mutual fund, Canadian, grandma. However, at this point, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself, do we really know that's grandma anymore? We have no idea, because keep in mind who the market grew to. The ballerina is now part of the market, so really that could be the ballerina. So as you can see, things are getting a little bit more complicated, but at the end of the day, level 2s, although it's not showing us everything, it's still making sense out of a lot of the extra dynamics that's going on out there. So let's update the scenario here a little bit. Slick Willie says, you know what, I'm Slick Willie. I got to live up to my name. So he pulls the slick move and puts a sell order in for 10,000 shares at 0.065. So all of a sudden, there's a new market maker that shows up, and they're going to show up right where Slick Willie tells them to show up, and that's at 6.5 cents. So hopefully you see how that worked. Slick Willie went from being slightly motivated, looking in from the outside. However, he decided to change his mind and enter into the market, and he's willing to sell for less than both grandma and or ballerina, Canadian. He's like, you know what? I'm a slick guy. I'm happy with 6.5 cents. Maybe he bought at 3 cents or 4 cents, or who knows where he bought. Level 2s, again, they're not going to tell us where this guy bought, but they're telling us where his motivation is. And his motivation right now is partial motivation, but he's much more motivated than Knight and Fancy because he's willing to sell at 6.5 cents. So that is where his offer is all of a sudden going to show up on level 2s. Remember, people are looking at level 2s, and it's at this stage right here. And then if you're still, if you're just staring at them all day long, all of a sudden, a new market maker is going to show up right there. So level 2s can change that just like that. Now, is this some big conspiracy or some big, vast game or manipulation that's taking place? No, it's just Slick Willie was looking in from the outside, and he's decided he finally wants to sell. So there his sell order is. There's just a level 2 showing us, hey, the puppet here was just told by his puppet master to try to sell at 6.5 cents. That's all level 2 is showing us here. There's no conspiracy. There's no games going on. Aliens aren't doing anything. It's just very straightforward. That's what level 2s are, helping us make sense of what's going on in the market. All right, if you have children in the room, send them out, because grandma has been very patient. She's been trying to sell for 7.5 cents. And, the Canadian, she kind of, they got a little bit on her nerves when he cut in front of her. But with Slick Willie and his little cutting in line move, she is at wit's end. Slick Willie has kind of pushed her off the deep end in terms of her patience. So grandma's old school. So she hops on the phone and says, dump my shares, Knight. I just want to get rid of them. And Knight says, yes, ma'am. You've paid us a commission. I'm the puppet. You're the puppet master. I'm going to get rid of those shares, and I'm going to get rid of them at whatever price I possibly can. Now, let's go back and think about how many Knight wanted, or how many grandma wanted to sell. Grandma had 250 shares up here, or 25,000, and now she's saying she just wants to get rid of them. So looking over here, do you see any mathematical problems? If you said no, then there's no mathematical problems. Good job. If you weren't quite sure, the reason for that is young couple still wants to buy 500. Grandma wants to sell 250. So when Knight goes to just get rid of them, Knight will be able to get rid of every single share at 6 cents. So now let's just look at that again, how it all transformed the level 2s here. So grandma is now gone. Hopefully you follow me there. She's called in. She's freaked out on Knight. Just get rid of my shares. I can't stand these people cutting in front of me. All psychological. Trading is all psychological. The market is all psychological and emotions. Her emotions finally got to her, and she said, that's it. I'm done. And she sold. Therefore, she is off the stage. And when she is off the stage, that's why we no longer see her over here on the ask side of the box. The box is now cleared of grandma. The stage is cleared of grandma. She is no longer a seller. Now, she did just want to get rid of it, but what she did was she told Knight to pretty much bid whack, or hit the bid. Whatever terminology you want to do, Knight hit the bid because grandma got emotional and wanted to get rid of it. How many did she hit the bid, or how many did Knight hit the bid for? Well, how many did grandma tell Knight to sell? 250, right? So Knight hit the bid for 250 to get rid of those shares, and young couple got 250 more shares. So that's why that shows they had 500. They got 250 more. Now they still need 250. So that's why that order changed. So hopefully that all makes sense. Again, Grandma sold. Therefore, Grandma is off the stage. Knight was instructed to just get whatever price possible. So Knight bid whacked, and the sellers out here, or the buyers out here, were the young couple, and they got another 250 shares of the 500 they wanted. But they still want 250 shares. So therefore, that's still going to be sitting there at 250 shares. Then finally, looking down at the tape, what were the transactions of this deal? Well, everything that I just talked about, we can summarize very quickly. The deal happened at a certain time. The deal happened for 250 shares, and the deal was agreed to at 6 cents. Where was the location of the deal? The location was out in the crowd. Somebody on stage sold out to somebody in the crowd. Therefore, it was a bid whack, and usually bid whacks are when transactions take place out in the crowd. They show up as red. Green, now assuming we're long, green is what you want. You want people buying from people on stage. You don't want people selling to people out in the audience. That is not good as a long. Now, if you're still waiting to get shares, that is good. But after you are into a stock, you want as many people buying from people up on stage as possible. But from the tape perspective, that's, the power of the tape right here. Quickly summarizes all that stuff that I've just been talking about. At a certain time, somebody sold 250 shares to agreed upon price of 6 cents, because the 6 cents was to somebody out in the crowd. On the bid side of level 2s, it showed up as red. So boom, just like that. Boy, can you get a lot of information out about the deal and the agreement just by looking at this one line. And of course, down here, the tape is also going to show the records of previous deals. This was our first scenario, so that just shows us kind of what's been going on. So had some people that were willing to pay 7 cents. Now all of a sudden had some people that wants to sell at 6 cents. So that brings up the question, is the stock losing value? Is the psychology of the stock starting to go down in value because somebody was willing to pay 7? Now somebody's willing to sell out to the crowd at 6 cents. Why would that happen? So it just starts to kind of bring up some more questions, but that's what levels 2 showing us. You can tell a lot by the tape, just by, the color alone, really. I mean, the more transactions and agreements that take place from people up on stage, the better. The more people that are willing to dump out to those in the crowd, not so good. And with that, I'm going to wrap up this video. We still have another 3 scenarios to go here, but I don't want these videos to drag out too long. So I'm going to wrap it up, and I will see you back for scenarios 4, 5, and 6.